Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Ethos Up Frequently Asked Questions webinar. My name is Eric Farrell. I am the product specialist here at Milestone for microwave digestion and clean chemistry. I know I've worked with a lot of you in the past before, so hello again to those of you who I've worked with. And for those of you who I haven't met yet, it's a pleasure to meet you virtually. So today what we'll be doing is we're going to be going over some of the frequently asked questions that we have encountered over the years, and we're also going to give some advice for making sure that your system is in top working condition. You can submit questions anytime during the webinar, and we'll be able to answer them at the end in the Q&A session. We'll have about 5 minutes or so at the end there. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you look at the top of your Zoom window, I have this screenshot here to show you how to navigate. I'm going to be showing video from myself as well as from my presentation. So if you click on this white box with the smaller white box where I have the red arrow, this is going to allow you to switch between the content, which is the presentation, as well as my video. You can also simply double click on the window which you would like to bring into the focus. So we have a few good things we're going to talk about today. We broke this up into operation and maintenance of your system. So for operation, we're going to go over the capabilities and the applications of the different rotors to help you make sure you're getting the best out of your equipment. We're going to talk about how the easyTEMP technology works, the contactless sensor, which you're all familiar with. Go over some applications as far as digestion and cleaning, and then saving some data. As far as maintenance, we're going to go over the things you need to do to make sure that your consumables are in top working condition, as well as the sensors for easyTEMP, and then where you can get a lot of the additional information and everything that I've spoken about today in Milestone Connect. So our first section is going to be operation. So we do offer 3 different rotors depending on what your application needs are. Most of you either have the Maxi 44 rotor or the SK15. We have a newly introduced Maxi 24 in the middle, and I'll speak about that a little bit. But I just want to talk about what the capabilities are of the rotors and give you some little bit of guidance for what they're best suited for. So the 3 rotors we have, I'm going to start with the rotor on the left, which is our Maxi 44. Maxi 44 is, you can do it, as you know, a single up to 44 samples at a time. Minimum acid volume for all 3 of these rotors is 5 milliliters, so make sure you remember that. The applications for the Maxi 44, because it's classified as a high throughput medium pressure rotor, you can really do basically all the environmental methods such as EPA 3015, 3051, 3052, food and agriculture, and some clinical samples. If you're working with any organics, you want to keep those around 1/4 or 1/2 gram. If you have a question on whether or not you can run something in any of these rotors, Maxis or the SK, you can go ahead and ask us. Happy to help. For those of you who have the SK15, the high pressure rotor, maximum working temperature is 240 Celsius and 100 bar. This is going to pretty much digest everything that you put into it. So you can do everything that you can do in the Maxi 44 and 24 in the SK15 as well. So pretty much anything you put in there, for the most part, you'll be able to digest. And then the rotor we have in the middle, it was recently introduced towards the end of last year, our Maxi 24 high performance rotor. So what this does is, this was targeted for those of you who need to do higher throughput of higher sample masses. We were able to blend the high throughput capabilities of the Maxi 44 and the SK15 into the Maxi 24. So that's going to be 220 C and 60 bar. So that's going to do pretty much everything that the Maxi can do, as well as up to 1/2 gram of many different types of samples: food and agriculture, farm and nutrient, and cannabis. If you do have questions, I'm going to be showing you some of the additional resources for you guys that you can refer to. Some of these are also available on Milestone Connect. Our Milestone Rotor Guide. So this is going to give you some very brief information on suggested sample masses, as well as acid volumes and applications. So the Rotor Guide is a very good choice. And of course, if you ever have a question, if you need to digest something new, you have a new application and you're not sure, just always go feel free to reach into us, and we're happy to help you. So the next part I want to talk about is the easyTEMP and how it works. So as I'm sure you're aware, the easyTEMP is the temperature mechanism which the Ethos UP utilizes to control temperature, and it's very, very important. It's important to understand, and the reason that I talk about this is temperature is one of the most important parameters in any digestion process. Temperature directly affects the digestion quality. If your digestion temperature is not hot enough, you may have an incomplete digestion as a result. So temperature is really what we want to control because that directly affects digestion quality, and pressure is just a byproduct of that. So we need to be able to reach temperature and accommodate pressures generated. Remember PV equals nRT back from college and high school. So wherever temperature goes, pressure is going to follow with it. So it's very important that we have a temperature mechanism that's able to control your digestion completely and safely, so we don't have any excessive venting or exothermic reactions. So the easyTEMP, I'm going to show you on my Ethos UP, which I have right here. The easyTEMP refers to the two contactless sensors which are in the bottom of your Ethos. So you have one in the back and one on the left. The positions of the sensors will depend on the configuration of your system, if you have an Ethos UP or a Maxi 44, Maxi 24. But that's where your sensors are located. We're going to be referring to those for cleaning later. So what we're doing is with easyTEMP, we are controlling and monitoring the temperature of every single vessel, and we are controlling off of the hottest. And the reason we do that is for safety reasons. So really, as you know, you have no thermocouples inside. So instead, we're using the easyTEMP to control all of our samples. Now, for those of you with the Ethos UP terminal, you'll be able to see. I want to familiarize yourself with this in case you're not really familiar. So you do have the ability to get an idea of the temperature of every single sample by looking at this. This will be displayed on your Easy Control software on your terminal. So if your colors are green, that means you're about at the set temperature. If you're blue, you're greater than 10% below your set temperature. That may be a lower sample mass, or if you have a blank in there, for example. And if you're red, such as what you see here, number 2, red is going to mean that you are 10% greater than the set temperature. And that most likely is the one controlling your microwave power. Remember that with easyTEMP, you can run a single vessel up to the rotor maximum. So there is no minimum except the single vessel that you're using. And this is the easyTEMP works with not only the SK15, but also the Maxi 24 and the Maxi 44 as well. And lastly, you also have the ability to click on the individual segments. So you see here, number 5 is a dark green, and then I'm displaying a temperature of 211 Celsius. So that means you're able to click on the individual segment and then see the corresponding temperature. I also get a lot of questions of how do I know if my digestion was successful? That is a very good question, and the only way to truly really know that is by doing an analysis via ICP, OES, or ICP-MS. So remember what our goal is of any digestion. What we want to do with digestion, and the reason that we're doing it, is because we want to get all of our elements of interest stable in solution. We want to take our matrix, break it down completely with acids, and then once we've completely destroyed the matrix with acid via digestion, then we can go ahead, take that, and put that onto our instrument. So understanding whether or not you have a successful digestion is really going to be more qualitative visually than quantitative on an ICP-MS. The only way to be quantitative is by analyzing it. So indications that you do most likely have a complete and successful digestion is that your samples may be clear and colorless. So the only time where that may not happen is, let's say you're digesting metals and metal alloys, you have a lot of copper or chromium or nickel or iron even, so they may be a bit colored. So that's totally normal. So for many of you, say in the cannabis industry, or those of you who are working with plant material, very typical, it's very typical that plant material will have silicates in it. It draws it up from the soil. So it is possible that if you're not analyzing for silicates, you can simply let those settle out. You can, if you do use hydrofluoric acid, that is the only way to get rid of silicates. However, if you're not analyzing for silicon, we let that settle out. Typically what we suggest for the pharmanutra industry or for the cannabis industry where we don't worry about silicates. And of course, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the temperature that we're using is appropriate to completely break down my sample. Just as an example of what a complete versus incomplete digestion looks like. The sample on the right here, this is clear, and then the one on the left here is incomplete. So the incomplete digestion may typically look yellow. It may also have, as we'll see on the next slide here. So it may be yellow. It may also have some cloudiness or unexplained sediment. So issues of achieving complete digestions. There's quite a few things that can cause issues, but let's look at some of the main ones that typically are the culprits. So it's important to understand the capabilities of what your rotor is, be it you're using the Maxi 24, Maxi 44, or SK15. So you want to make sure that you're using an appropriate sample mass which that rotor can accommodate. If your sample mass is too high, you may not be able to accommodate the pressure generated, which could lead to excessive venting, and therefore you cannot reach your temperature because you're losing pressure. The final digestion temperature may not be hot enough, so you may want to go maybe typically increments of 10 degrees Celsius. You may want to try that. Also, your digestion time may not be long enough. Typically 10 to 15 minutes for a hold is sufficient, but there are occasions you may have to go longer. It's possible that the incorrect acid chemistry is being used. If your acid chemistry is incorrect, it doesn't matter what you do as far as temperature, you're not going to break down that sample. Think of if you take a key and put it into the incorrect lock, no matter how many times you try, you won't be able to unlock it. With the appropriate acids, you'll be able to break everything down. And again, some signs of incomplete digestions are going to be either yellowness due to residual carbon content, or some cloudiness that may be in your sample, or unexplained sediment. Incomplete digestions can cause issues on your ICP or ICP-MS, such as polyatomic interferences at the exact sample mass of your element of interest on an ICP-MS. You can also have suppressions, etc. So you can have some issues there. So we really want to try and get a complete digestion. And I hope you all know if you ever have problems or any of this happens, you can come to us and we can try and help you the best that we can. So cleaning vessels is a very important component of the sample prep process. If your vessels or you have any issues where you have any carryover or contamination, you want to make sure that you are providing appropriate cleaning. So I basically broke this up into 3 different ways of cleaning vessels. So the simplest and easiest way to clean is with a simple rinse with DI water. This may be sufficient when your analyte concentration is rather high, say in the % level. A triple rinse with DI water might just work. The next level up from that would be a closed vessel acid reflux. So this would be by performing an acid digestion with blank acid. You can simply go into the method that's stored in your terminal or also in the manual, and you would select the cleaning icon for your application, and then you would select cleaning for your appropriate rotor that you're using, and you can use that program. There may be an occasion where you do need a deeper clean, so that may be either doing a closed vessel acid reflux for greater time at temperature, and maybe changing up your acid chemistry a little bit to make sure you dissolve everything, or you may do, as a deeper clean, a heated acid soak or an acid bath. That would be, as an example, that would be, say, using 1-to-1 nitric or hydrochloric acid to water at about 80 degrees Celsius. Acid soaks have been used for a very long time, but they do have some issues, such as requiring lots of acid, takes up a lot of fume hood space, and you can only get so clean if you have to go to lower and lower and lower levels. You do have to change your baths because you will get an equilibrium between the bath and what's on your components. Another way to overcome the issues of heated acid soaks or acid baths, or even doing a closed vessel reflux, is using a technique called acid steam cleaning. Acid steam cleaning utilizes subboiling distillation to generate ultra-pure acid vapors, which will clean any component compatible with acid. This can be not only your vessel components, but say your sample introduction components to your ICP or ICP-MS. Our acid steam cleaning system that we have is the Trace Clean here. We actually did a webinar on this recently, so I do invite you to take a look at that. If you weren't invited to it and you are interested, you can let us know and we're more than happy to send you that link. Goes over the various different cleanings and benefits of different things, of different cleaning methods. So not many people think about saving their runs, but it is very helpful to save your runs because us as your milesCARE support team, we want to be able to support you the best way we can. And by doing that, by saving your runs, that does help us to do that. So right now I'm going to go over the terminal connectivity, and so you can see exactly what's on your terminal. So I'm going to grab a terminal, which I have right here, exactly what we're looking at. So just so you have an understanding of all the ports and everything that you can do with this. So on the back of the terminal, we have a LAN connection. This is for connecting to a local area network. We have 4 USB ports here, and we have one at the top. These USB ports can be used to put in a USB stick. You can only use one at a time for saving them. And then you can save runs directly to the stick and also to the LAN. With the 4 USB ports, you are also able to connect a USB keyboard and mouse if you'd like to. The video ports are going to be for the Ethos, for the camera, the safe view camera, and then your device is where you, of course, you connect your Ethos. So when you're done with your run, you want to go ahead and save your run. Some people do not. Most people will save it. It depends on how you operate in your lab. So the way you would save a run is, let's look at this run here, which is completed. I'll click on the down arrow, and then I'll select Save. When I select Save, I'm going to have this box pop up, which will prompt me to save to either a USB stick or a server if I'm set up for that. The next slide will talk about how to set up the server. When you save your runs, you're going to generate 4 different files. The first one is going to be, and the most important, is the DPR file. That's the file extension. This is going to be an archive file for any diagnostic use. We like this because it allows us, if you send us this file, to load this onto any of our terminals. So we can load it as if we did the digestion ourselves. We can see how the instrument behaved. So anytime that you have an issue with any digestions, please send us this data. If you send it to us on the front end, it just makes it easier and faster for us to help you. We also have an XLS, which is going to be a 2003 format of Excel. So that's going to include any raw temperature data. So that's going to be the graph from your temperature curve, which you are able to reproduce, say, if you wanted to put it in a paper, for example. We also have a bitmap of the file run, a BMP, and a PDF and a report that has everything. For those of you who may have purchased an Ethos Up in the last year or so, we do have the ability to autosave. So check the manual of your system, and you can go into the settings and see if this is available. You can turn this on in the terminal settings. If you do want to know if you did purchase your instrument in, say, the past year and a half or so, this is most likely you're able to do this. You can contact us and we can see if it is available on your system. So then what this would do is it would take out the need to have to manually save, and you can automatically save to either a USB or a server without you having to think about it. So next, I'm going to go over a little bit, not too much detail, but how you would connect your Ethos up to a local area network. This is very useful because this allows you to save your runs on an external server. I actually use this in our lab here because I'm able to save any of my runs, and then on my server I can go to my laptop and access all of the data. Then I can use this in my reports that I use for customers, etc. So I find it very useful for myself. Important that you want to disable this. If you're familiar with IT speak, you want to turn off this thing called DHCP. You want that to be off. If you have DHCP on, you may have to re-enter in your IP address every few months. So make sure you turn that off. Of course, you can use this given it is allowed by your company's IT policy. So first check with them. And what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you want to enter in an IP address but you want the IP address, you don't want to enter in just anyone. Speak to your IT department, because if you enter in a random IP address, you can clash with something else on the network, and we don't want that. So make sure to consult your IT department. They can provide you with an unused IP address. Also, what you'll do is you enter in your username and password that you use to access your local server. And then what you'll do is on your server, you're going to create a folder called T660. And then you're going to point, if you're using the NFS or CIFS, you're going to point this directly to that file. When I enter in my server, I usually use the IP address, your internal IP address for that, and then you can browse. That'll get you there. You can refer to this, and what I've spoken about earlier is also available in the user manuals. So the user manuals do talk about this in more detail. Okay, so next we're going to go into some maintenance, how to keep your system in top performing condition. So first we're going to talk a little bit about rotor and vessel maintenance. So this is what's really going to be used the most and have the most wear and tear of your system are the vessels, because you're using to digest your samples. So first let's talk about, for those of you who may have the SK15 with the high pressure rotor. These screenshots are taken right from the manual. So if you do refer to the SK15 easyTEMP user manual, all of this is in greater detail there, but I just wanted to summarize it for you here. A few things you're going to check is on your springs may look like this, or they may be the darker brown that you see in the picture there. You want to examine the bottom part here just to make sure that there's no cracks or deformation, and if there are, you want to replace that. It's important to remember, too, that you do not want to rinse these under water to clean them. Simply use a damp paper towel and to wipe them off. Another thing you want to do every few months is the pressure screw inside your segment. You can actually use a PTFE spray to lubricate this. What that will do is that will make sure that when you are tightening down with the torque wrench, when you're tightening that down here, you're going to the exact setting that this is set for. Therefore, it will make sure that if you do vent, your vessel has to, it will be closer, it will be at 100 bar where it's supposed to be. So what you can do is you can just simply remove this screw, what I have here, and then I would take something such as a dry lube, a Teflon spray, and then the way I would do it is hold it up like this and just give it one small spray. Once you do that, let it dry, because you want to make sure it's completely dry before you put it in the microwave or put it back. Once it's dry, you can go ahead and put it, and what I would do is you would screw it all the way down and all the way back up to disperse the Teflon spray throughout the threads. Another thing to consider for when you're cleaning the inside, cleaning your segments, is the bottom plates of your rotors. So these have little balls in them. You may or may not have actually turned your rotor upside down, but over time you can get some debris in here, which may be from the inside of your microwave. And what you also might see inside your microwave are some darker lines. I'll show you how to clean those. So you would spray this out either with a canned air or a compressor, then lubricate with the PTFE spray. This is done about every 6 months or so. Last thing I want to show you for maintenance, on the inside, if we remove this piece, which holds my rotors, I can take this out. Now, if you see the lines here, I could simply use some alcohol to clean those off. And then I will just place that right back into my system and put my spindle back on that holds my rotor. Then lastly, for the SK15, you do want to check your TFM components. These are really what get the most use and the most wear and tear. So inspect these, make sure that they're not deformed or cracked or have any light spots. So if you hold it up to the light, you want to make sure you don't see anything coming through. Look around the top, make sure that this is flat and you don't have a white opaque line starting to form here, which is a sign that you've been beating on that vessel pretty well. If you ever have a question on whether or not something needs to be replaced, you can always ask us. So for the Maxi 24 and the Maxi 44, the base plate is the base plate, bottom plate, which is here, is going to be the same maintenance that I just showed you. So that's cleaning it out with alcohol and then lubricating. But for your Maxi vessels, you want to check these just the same as you would. So if they're cracked, deformed, the same way you're going to inspect your SK vessels, you're going to inspect these as well. For your Maxi 44 or your Maxi 24, going to be essentially the same care. Now, I looked at some of the questions that you had submitted beforehand, and it's nice somebody actually asked this question: how do I bake out my vessels with NOx if they have NOx contamination? So over time, as you're performing your digestions, your TFM components will absorb and accumulate NOx gas. This is because your nitric acid decomposes and forms NOx as part of the oxidation process of breaking down your organic material, and TFM, when you heat it up, can be a little porous and it will absorb some of that gas. Typically, our components, our vessels and everything are invisible and transparent to microwave energy. What happens is over time, as NOx gas accumulates, if we take a look at this vessel, this is a bit orange compared to what a standard vessel would look like. So this vessel, I'd want to do a test and see if it's absorbing. NOx is absorbed by your TFM vessels, and that causes the vessels to heat up. So that's not something we want to happen, because we don't want to heat the vessel too hot. So first thing you would do is you would clean your components. So you wouldn't want any sample or anything in there. Make sure they're clean and dry. Then you're going to place them in the microwave as you see here. So the top is going to be your Maxi 44. You're going to take off the top plate on the Maxi 44 and the Maxi 24. For the SK15, you're simply going to place them on the rotor body just like that. Then what you're going to do is you're going to run a microwave program. If you're using less than or equal to 6 vessels, you're going to use the 45 seconds at 450. And then if you're using more than 10, you would use 600 watts. So what we're doing is at the end of this test, we're going to be holding our vessels, and we want to see, are they absorbing microwaves or not? So are they hot or warm? If they are, we want to take our vessels and put them into an electrical oven to remove the NOx gas which has been absorbed into the TFM. We do this at 160 degrees Celsius overnight for a minimum of 6 hours. If you do have the ability to ventilate near your electrical oven, that would be helpful, because you are going to be releasing some NOx gas in here. So if you can put it near the fume hood or ventilate if possible, that would be ideal. This is also described in detail in the manual. So for calibration of our easyTEMP, this is just a test to make sure that we are able to, that our easyTEMP is working properly. So what we do is we take a vessel, such as our SK15 here, and we'll fill this with about 30 mils of DI water. Then we're going to place it in the microwave as shown on the right, without the cover. So you're going to have your vessel in your peak shield, and then in your segment that goes in. For your Maxi 44 and Maxi 24, you have the internal and the external rings. You're going to test both of those as you see here. And this procedure is also outlined in the manuals. Then you'll go into the program and load ET test. You do the microwave method, and then you should end up, because we're in an open vessel with water only, this is the only time you're going to run anything with an open vessel, is doing an easyTEMP calibration verification with water. Following the test, you should be within about 10 degrees Celsius of the boiling point of water. If the test fails, you'll want to clean the sensors and covers and replace any of the covers if applicable, then retest. Ideally, this is something you'd want to do weekly, should only take a few minutes. So for care of the easyTEMP sensors, I'm going to look at what we have in here. What you want to do, and this is also in the manual as well, clean these off with, you probably have been supplied with some Q-tips or cotton swabs that look just like this. So you're going to use these to clean your sensors. Remove any dust from them if there is any. Use a cotton swab with alcohol, and then replace the sensor covers if needed. So you should have also received some additional sensor covers that look like these. And these sensor covers are only going to be on your contactless sensors if you have an SK15, which it would be in the back, or the Maxi 24 on the left. If you have a multi setup, you're going to have 2 sensors that have 2 caps on them. So as we near the end here, I want to just talk about Milestone Connect. Many of you may or may not be familiar with it, but I like to talk about it because it is a really good resource for you. Many of the things I've spoken about you can access right on Milestone Connect. So this not only allows you to access application notes and reports. We also have video tutorials, user manuals, tips and techniques. Also, you have the ability, should your IT department allow it, and you have the Ethos Up to remotely control your system. You access it here via milestoneconnect.com/N A. The username will be your instrument serial number, and your password is 12345 by default. You should have received a card such as this. This will have your username and password, and many of you may have already received an iPad. Just so you can see here, if we look at the Ethos Up, so this is the login for Milestone Connect. Once you go to milestoneconnect.com/NA, you come to this page, you would click on Ethos Up, and then these are the different things that you can access here. So the video tutorials are very good, all of the user manuals, the tips and techniques, vessel cleaning procedures are in here. So this is really a wealth of information, and it already comes with your system if you're not using it. If you do have any questions about this, please email me if you have my email address. If not, I'll be showing it at the end. And lastly, I want to talk about preventative maintenance to your system, which is performed by your milesCARE team. So for those of you who may not be familiar with preventative maintenance, what this does is it's a proactive, this is done yearly by our trained milesCARE personnel and our service technicians. What they do is they proactively replace any critical components or parts. They'll also calibrate and test any of the sensors, so we want to make sure that our temperature sensors are working properly. We're going to make sure that all components and assemblies are working well, so this is not just what you see here, but some behind the scenes in the back as well. Make sure all of our components are working in top performing condition. This includes doing testing for proper microwave output, changing any, if there's anything that needs to be adjusted or changed. Also, what we'll do is we will review the condition of your consumables. So we'll take a look and we'll see how your vessels are looking, and we may advise to replace some of them, or say you're getting to the end of the lifetime for that. In about a month or so, you may want to change it. So we're going to help advise you on the conditions of your consumables. Also, any critical spares that you may have, you also think that's going to be things such as, a few extra vessel segments, maybe some of these in there. And also, what we'll do at the end is a safety check to ensure there's no microwave leakage. So by doing the preventative maintenance, we're really trying to catch and see if we want to catch any problems that may occur that can cause you downtime. So it's in the name, preventative maintenance. We want to prevent anything from happening so you don't have any unnecessary downtime. So we covered a lot of really good things today. If you do have any application questions, again, you're all users, so I know I met a few of you over the years. So any questions, applications, you can email applications@milestonesci.com. Also, my email address is here. If you have any questions about anything that we brought up during the webinar, you can feel free to shoot them in the Q&A section, and I'll take a look at those. For those questions I'm not able to answer, I'll email you back. We also have Michael Randy, who is our tech support and service manager, and Stacy DiGiovanni, who's our service coordinator. She's the lady who's going to help set you up with any preventative maintenance and contracts. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at a few of your questions here. I'll get to take a look at my nephew for a second. So let's see here. Go to the Q&A. I have one question here. For the peak sleeves for the SK15, what is the recommended cleaning for them? That is a very good question. So what's very good about these peak sleeves here is they really don't require much cleaning. All you really need to do is when you're done with your digestion, because it's rather non-porous and they're very hard, you can simply rinse this off, you can wipe them down with a paper towel, and that's it. There's nothing else you really need to do. It's not going to absorb any acids if you do get any on it. Simply wipe it down and dry it, and then you're good. That was a very good question there. I'm going to actually look here. If anybody else has additional questions, you can feel free to put them in the Q&A. I did have some questions that were submitted to me earlier, so for those of you who did that, thank you very much. I have one here. Will 1 gram sample with 9 mils nitric and 3 mils HCl in the SK15 vessels be too volatile, and would a reduction in acid volumes help? So this user is working with fertilizers. So if you're following, there's actually an AOAC method for fertilizers. It depends on whether or not it's organic or not. So if it's an organic fertilizer, according to if you're following the AOAC method, you're going to be using 1 gram is going to be for inorganic. So if you have an organic matrix, an organic fertilizer, you're going to want to use 0.5 gram because that's going to be much more reactive. It's going to also generate higher pressure. So for that, it looks like, based on what you told me, it sounds like the AOAC method, 2017.02. So that's, I would say, if your fertilizer is inorganic, sure, you can follow that. If it is organic, drop your mass to 0.5 gram. Let's see, I had another question here as well. Is there a special requirement for digesting animal feed and fertilizer samples? So this was another very good question. Feed and fertilizer, if you're working with the SK15, which I looked up your system, and you will be receiving your system soon with an SK15. Animal feed and fertilizer. So fertilizer, you can actually follow the AOAC method. It's called, I'm going to just show this to you here, digestion of fertilizers. So we actually do have, this is a new method that was released here. If you are interested, I do have your name here. I can send this over to you. Anybody else who is interested as well. So fertilizers, you can just follow the AOAC method. Just make sure if it's organic, reactive, use about 0.5 gram. If it's inorganic and you're following that method, the gram is okay in the SK15. Let's see if I had any other questions here. So we had somebody ask about preventative maintenance and types of cleaning solutions to use for different parts of the Ethos UP. So I think I had already covered that. That's really it. I don't have any other questions from anybody else. Let's see. If any additional questions do come up that you do have, you can feel free to reach into me at any time. Happy to help and assist. Everybody, thank you so much for your time today. Really do appreciate it. I'll give you back the rest of your day, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.